You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Friday, February 14th, or as all the lovers call it, it is Valentine's Day. So, hope you guys have a good day, whether, you've got a significant other or not. It could be a self-love type of day as well. But anyway, appreciate all of you tuning in. What's going on, everyone in the live chat? I expect you guys to keep this one popping as you have been as of late. Again, appreciate all of you. All right. So what I want to talk about today in this show, Friday, my show is usually reserved for all the updates we've gotten throughout the week. And we've gotten plenty, but they haven't really been updates. It's more so like rumors. And we're hearing it a lot from, different beat writers. So I do want to preface this entire show by saying most, if not everything, that I'm going to discuss today and that these beat writers have mentioned throughout the week are not reports. So don't treat it as such. But I do find some of the things that they say to be interesting because I do believe they have a inside look and ear to what's going on with the 49ers. And so I am here to share some of what they've said in the last week with you, starting with Tim K talking about Deebo Samuel. And as we know, Deebo Samuel has requested a trade from the 49ers. Now, on his 49ers Plus Minus podcast that he has weekly with Matt Barrows, he did say, quote, "He is not in shape. I keep hearing it, 20 pounds overweight, and that led to a lot of his lack of explosion. In their belief, his lack of ability to get through tackles, which has kind of been who he is. I think that this has come to an end. This relationship, which was great for Kyle Shanahan and Deebo, I think they're still close, but I think had been bumpy." And this is not the first time that he's mentioned Deebo being 20 pounds overweight by the end of the 2024 season. He mentioned it in the previous 49ers Plus Minus episode as well. And he did say in that episode, like, he heard it from someone in the building. Now, one person's, I don't want to say it's one person in the building's opinion, because if he was actually 20 pounds overweight, then it is indeed fact. But who doesn't agree with that is Deebo Samuel. Yeah, who would have thought, right? Like, and he tweeted this. He actually quote tweeted a tweet that quoted Tim K's quote from the podcast. He quote tweeted it and said, 3 laughing face emojis. "People make up anything in they head." Several exclamation points. I mean, look, it's not a surprise that Deebo would feel a type of way about this being out there. Now, again, like, I don't know if the 20 pounds overweight thing is true, but I have eyes. Like, I can see he wasn't to the weight that he probably should have been. Now, I'm not here to make anyone feel bad about their respective weight. But, when it comes to athletes, usually they do have, like, it's part of the job to maintain a certain weight, and teams do strive to keep you under a certain weight. My understanding through everything that all the beat writers have said over time with Deebo is that keeping him within the weight that they want him at has been a struggle over the years. So the fact that Deebo 2024 dealt with, pneumonia, after that, he looked especially, a little puffy. After that, I obviously is going to be harder for him to maintain his normal weight. So again, like, if Deebo doesn't think that he was 20 pounds overweight, what I think he would be arguing here is semantics, or technicalities. Like, okay, maybe he was 10 pounds overweight or something. Like, I don't know. I do know, because again, I have eyes, that he was probably overweight. I think we all kind of suspect that. But like, I get it. Does Tim Kaine need to go on a podcast and say these things? No, but it does maybe underline why the 49ers maybe at this time do feel like it's a good time to move on from Deebo. So he's just trying to bring some color to the situation, and Deebo doesn't really appreciate that, which I don't think anyone would like someone else talking about their weight to the masses, right? I certainly would not. But yeah, that was interesting, and so we'll see where this thing goes with Deebo, of course. I expect that the 49ers will have a resolution to this before March 22nd, as we've been mentioning. That would be like the soft deadline, since he does have a bonus that gets triggered at that point. And so whether it's a trade, whether it's a post June 1st release designation, that will all be decided before March 22nd. So there is going to be a resolution soon. But in the meantime, would not be surprised to see more of this back and forth and Deebo having responses to some reports that are out there. Definitely would not be surprising. So that's it on the Deebo front. Another thing that I found interesting, of course, is okay, loaded. One thing that I found interesting is Matt Maiocco going on his YouTube channel and saying that he's not sure that, Myles Garrett to the 49ers makes sense. I'll play part of this clip. It's a very long clip, and shout out to Coach Yak for posting it. But I'll only play a bit of it just so you guys get the idea of why he thinks Myles Garrett doesn't make sense for the 49ers.
Myles Garrett. And I mean, the more I think about it, I don't know that it makes a whole lot of sense for the 49ers from the standpoint of the draft pick compensation is one thing. And there are reasons why it does not behoove the 49ers to give up draft pick compensation. I do think that the roster was set back immensely by the Trey Lance trade and giving up those first round draft picks. Yes, they got Brock Purdy the next draft, and that ended up being kind of a organization saver, getting Brock Purdy. But the 49ers missed some opportunities to add some really high level talent through that trade to move up to number 3 in the 2021 draft to select Trey Lance. What it's also done is it's kind of stripped the 49ers of some opportunities to add good players, defensive linemen, for instance, maybe an offensive lineman at controlled costs. And the 49ers have so many high-priced players as it is. When you just think about, just ticking it through, Brock Purdy will become one of them. But there's Christian McCaffrey.
And then at this point, he goes on to list a bunch of guys that the 49ers are paying or going to need to pay to further make his point as to why he doesn't believe Myles Garrett makes sense. Do you know what I think about all this? And sure, I might be putting on my tinfoil hat on at this point. I might be putting on my biased fan hat at this point. I don't know, but you guys are right there with me, maybe. You know what I think is that I think the 49ers have spoken. I'll just say that. I think the change of tune for some of these things that we're discussing today that have kind of been a 180 from what these same beat writers have said just like a couple of weeks ago is like very interesting to me, because I'm like, in my head, I'm like, what changed? What changed? I don't think it was that long ago that Matt Maiocco on his own podcast with Jennifer Lee Chan, mentioning he expects the 49ers to be aggressive, to, call in about Myles Garrett, and now it doesn't make sense. I don't know. I think that's coming from something he's maybe hearing or heard. Again, that's just my suspicion, putting my tinfoil hat on, but would not put it past anyone in this situation to change their tune because of what they're hearing from the 49ers side. So I did find this very interesting. And also, I find it contradictory to the truth, because the difference between giving up draft picks for Trey Lance and giving up draft picks for Myles Garrett, we talked about it on the show like last week or the week before that when we talked about Myles Garrett. It's like trading 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance did absolutely hurt the 49ers and their ability to continue building their team and retooling their team via the draft. Absolutely. That cannot be argued with. But the one thing I think you can argue with is Trey Lance was a projection. He is a player coming out of the draft, right? Just like any player, it is more or less a shot in the dark, as a shot that the 49ers took. But the difference between trading for Trey Lance or trading 3 first-round picks or however many first-round picks for Trey Lance in trading 2 first-round picks or 1, however much it would be for Myles Garrett. The difference between trading for Myles Garrett is that you are trading for a known commodity, someone in the NFL who has had success, is at the top of his position. That is the difference. So if the 49ers are telling themselves, they're trying to tell us, and again, maybe it's not the 49ers, maybe it is just Matt Maiocco, but if that's what they're trying to tell us, I'm not buying it. Like, it's not the same, and they shouldn't be treated the same. So I don't know. My suspicion, like I said, is that, maybe the 49ers did call the Browns about a possible trade. Maybe after that call, they found out that, it's gonna take too much, more than we're willing to give. And so now you have someone else trying to soften the blow a little bit to prepare the fan base for when the 49ers inevitably do not end up with Myles Garrett. That's my suspicion. Again, might not be true. That's what I think is going on. I don't think the 49ers maybe see themselves as some team that's going to be aggressive enough to go after Myles Garrett. But again, I'm not buying the reasons that Matt Maiocco is laying out here as good enough reasons to not go after Myles Garrett, especially if you want to treat 2025 as an all-in year. Like I think it should be, right? So, yeah, those are my thoughts on that. But we've got a quick, kind of show that we want to go over here today. So I got another clip for another 49ers beat writer. This time, the other Matt Barrows. He was on KNBR this week, and he said that he more or less thinks it's a long shot that Greenlaw and Hufanga return. So let me play that clip for you guys, and you can see what he had to say.
I think the chances are better than not that Dre Greenlaw is gone. And the same with Talanoa Hufanga. I mean, I could be wrong, and their markets could be smaller than I think that they'll be, but I think these guys are eager to get out there and at least test that theory.
Wow. So, Matt, let's get into that a little bit more. You don't think that Dre Greenlaw would return. Is it just because of, I guess, their concerns maybe medically with him only playing 1.5 games this season, or they have other priorities where you see like the Philadelphia Eagles, they get 6 sacks on Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Maybe they want to put more money towards the defensive line, but you do believe that Dre Greenlaw may not come back with the 49ers this year?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a strong opinion on that. Like I said, I think the chances are greater that he leaves than he comes back. And I think that the fact that he only played a half, essentially, in 2024 actually works to the 49ers' favor, because I think that would tamp down the market a bit. But, in my my sense is that Dre Greenlaw wants the opportunity to run his own shop the way that Azeez Al-Shaair did with the Texans this past season. And he's not going to get that with Fred Warner on the roster. I think he loves Fred Warner to death, and they're going to be friends for life. But I think he wants a chance to kind of strike out on his own. And
all right, so again, this is a bit of a 180 from what some people were saying about, and I'm not saying Matt Barrow specifically, but what some people were saying about Ellis Greenlaw making a potential return to the 49ers. What it was when Nick Bosa was asked, and I believe it was at the Pro Bowl, when he was asked about, Saleh coming back, and in that same conversation or interview, he did mention that Robert Saleh's adamant about keeping Dre Greenlaw or wanting to re-sign Dre Greenlaw. So then everyone kind of assumed that at that point, Dre Greenlaw probably back on the table as a possibility to return for the 49ers, because I do think Robert Saleh has some influence. If he wants Dre Greenlaw back, it will be done, right? That kind of thing. And so again, this is a bit of a 180 from that. And I'm not saying Matt Barrows is doing a 180 because he's not the one that said that. It was Nick Bosa that said that. But I do think that if this is coming from new information that maybe Barrows got on, Greenlaw and or Hufanga, that it could be coming from someone inside of the 49ers. And so I think what he's saying, though, makes a whole lot of sense. And I agree. I do think that Dre Greenlaw wants to be the alpha. He wants to be the LB1 somewhere. He wants to be the Mike. I mean, he saw probably what Azeez Al-Shaair is doing with the Texans, right? And wants some of that action. And I think he has every right to want that and feel like he could get that. Of course, the Achilles tear did complicate things a bit. I think the 49ers would have been more willing to extend him and pay him handsomely had that not happened. But I understand it from the 49ers standpoint of, maybe we shouldn't make that big of a commitment to Dre Greenlaw if we want him back. Like I could see them offering him a 1-year prove it kind of deal, which kind of feels like a slap in the face after how good he's been and all that. But again, with the injury, like you can't really offer him more than that, right? Especially with how many other guys you have to pay. So I think for the 49ers, it makes more sense to, hey, if test free agency, if that doesn't work out, if you don't get what you're looking for out in the open market, you have an offer here on the table you can always come back to, right? So that's probably where they're going to leave it. That was my suspicion even before, Nick Bosa said that Saleh's adamant on having Greenlaw back. And so, yeah, I guess we'll see. Hufanga, I was not bought into the 49ers being interested in bringing him back at all, even when there were some reports saying that he might. So, yeah, I think Matt Barrows is right here. I think that both of these guys probably more likely to leave elsewhere. All right, Jesse, what's going on, man? Last Second Sports. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet. He says 49ers have lost 3 main players since the 2023 season: Hargrave, Debo, Armstead. Greenlaw and Huff may also be gone, add in the Ayuk and CMC injuries. Maybe they realize there is no all-in reality. I disagree with this, though, because I think in order for the 49ers to go all in 2025, you kind of have to cut ties with some of these guys. Like, some of these guys just, they're not going to cut it. Like, Debo, trying to run it back with the same group is not going all in. And I feel like that's what they felt in 2024, that they needed to run it back with everybody in order to be all in. And that's not the case. In fact, I feel like it ended up hurting them in the end. I still think they should have traded Debo last offseason when they had much better offers for him. And they could have probably gotten, pretty good quality player for like a second-round pick, what I think Debo was being offered for. So, yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. I do think that, in order to, you could still go all in and turn a new leaf. That's what the 49ers have to do. It's not easy, though. It's definitely not easy. We see teams like the Eagles, their turnaround. That's not easy to do. And everyone's like, we want the 49ers to, follow the Eagles blueprint. Well, it takes a lot of things going right, and hitting on your draft picks in order for that to happen. But yeah, it's possible. It's just difficult. It's not as easy as people, I think, are making it out to be. But yeah, I mean, obviously, there's going to be a lot of changes with the 49ers this offseason. We knew that. We expected that. I think some of us even, I'd go as far as saying we would welcome that. I think it's time to evolve. You weren't able to make it happen with the group of guys that you have. You got to find something else. Okay, this didn't work. What can we improve on? What can we change? The NFL has changed so much, and like from one year to the next, like I feel like the game evolves, and you can't just continue doing the same thing and expecting the same results. That is the definition of insanity. So I do welcome some changes for the 49ers. Jesse says, I guess what I'm saying is replacing them with younger, cheaper players makes more sense. Yeah, we're on the same page about that. I think we're all excited about that. Like it's been a while since I've been excited about a 49ers offseason, right? And who would have thought it's in an offseason where we are losing so many top players and we're excited. Like, so I think that tells you that as a fan base, I think a lot of us are ready to move on from certain players and the same old, right? Like we just want to see this team evolve. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, but I think there's reason to look forward to the future. And again, it's not going to be easy, but definitely something that's going to be possible. But let's see. So I got through most of the little rumors that we've been hearing. I think there was a couple others I didn't have actual like quotes for, like Tim K, for example. Also, I'm assuming on the 49ers plus minus episode. I haven't listened to it yet, but as some of you have mentioned, he had said that he's confident that Brock Purdy's deal won't reach $60 million. I've been saying like my range, what I think Brock Purdy's range will end up being as far as APY goes is between 55 and 60, 61. If the 49ers can get him under 60, that'd be a huge win, I think, in my book. Like, you don't have to get him to a record, a market-setting deal. I think that would be a win, but you still get him in a respectable range where he doesn't feel slighted by the offer that you're giving him. And you can get it done quickly, hopefully, and you can move forward with your offseason, knowing that you have your guy and the rest of the chips can fall where they may. And, we'll continue to say it, like APY is not the end-all be-all with these contracts. In fact, it means next to nothing. Like these days, like guaranteed money is what we want to pay attention to the most. So my suspicion would be that if the 49ers don't sign Purdy to a market-setting contract, so 61 million, then my suspicion would be that the guarantees will maybe be a little bit more than, I don't know. I think I continue looking at the Jordan Love deal as like, oh, like his guarantees are really low. So I would say like that's the floor. So I would expect Brock to get more than that, which I'm trying to remember what Jordan Love's guarantees are. Hold on, let me see if I can look up some of these contracts really quick. But yeah, so I think that would be the compromise. Okay, APY is going to be this, then I should get more guarantees. Or sometimes it's the other way around, right? But as I said, I don't think APY really means much of anything. All right, total guaranteed. Jordan Love's getting 160 total guaranteed, 100 fully guaranteed. Tua's getting 93 fully guaranteed. So yeah, I would say like Jalen Hurts getting 110. So I would say like Purdy probably gets over 100 million in guarantees, but his APY will probably be in between Jordan Love's and Dak Prescott. So not exactly market setting, but I think that's still a respectable offer. Justin in the comments says 3 years though, keep it short. I think I think the 49ers are, and shout out to Parag Marathe, right? He's the cap guru in all of these deals. He takes a little too long for my taste sometimes, but he is good at what he does. What they usually do is they'll have those void years, right? Or they'll have an out in the contract so they can get out of the contract before the entirety of it. So it could be like a 5-year deal, 4-year deal, but you can have an out after 2 or 3 years, right? And I feel like they would do that because, again, when it comes to these contracts and these extensions, like the initial numbers, that's your headline. Everyone reads the headline. The headline has to look good for the player and mostly for the player. But what the team wants is that all the article, the whole contract, the fine print, they want that to look good for themselves, which usually it does for the 49ers. They do play some of these contracts smart. So I do expect that they'll have couple years of low cap hits followed by several staggered out escalating cap hits from there. I do think they'll have an out within 3 years of the extension date, and I think they're gonna find ways to protect themselves in all of it. So that's kind of what I expect with Brock and an eventual deal for him. Now, I want to end today's show with the last couple minutes here. First, I want to say that next week going to be starting an off-season Friday weekly show with Wayne Breezy, off-season Fridays. And what I want to start doing, we both love the draft and studying some of these players, and so we definitely want to bring that to the show as well, and keep every episode, it's going to have a little bit of some draft talk, right? So what I want to do starting today, it's going to be called 49K Draft Club. It's like a book club, but for the draft. So if any of you guys in the comments in the live chat have watched any players, if you guys have my guy in the draft, someone that you're pounding the table for, that you're like, Steph, you have to check this guy out, watch his tape. I am all ears, put them in the live chat, and I will check that player out. And next week, we'll compare notes. All right, I'll tell you what I think about that player, and I'll give you a name too, because I've been watching some guys this week, and I'll give you guys some homework if you love the draft like I do, and you like to watch prospects. So let's see. So this week, I caught 2 of the TCU guys. So Jack Beck. I don't know if it's Betch or Beck. We got to look that one up because the commentators at the Senior Bowl were calling him Betch. But all throughout the week, I was calling him Jack Beck. I mean, there's the CH in his first name, and that one is pronounced as Jack. So has to be Beck, right? Jack Beck. All right. Yeah, so Jack Beck, I love. And then last night I was watching Savion Williams, also a TCU guy. They have slightly different games, but I think, they're ex receivers. Like Savion Williams, also kind of a big-bodied guy. I think they're both good and aggressive at the catch point. Beck is the better blocker, in my opinion. I would like to see, better effort more consistency from Savion Williams in the blocking department, but both of these guys are weapons, especially in the red zone. All right, so I love their game in the red zone. I expect the 49ers are probably going to be drafting a wide receivers, so I'm starting to get into some of these guys as I go. I'll also say this. One of my favorite, and he's like become my guy of this year, is Jamaree Caldwell of Oregon. That dude's a beast, and he's huge. He's a big boy, but he can win both in the run and in the pass rush. I love that. I don't understand how he's not getting more attention and more buzz, because in my opinion, like, he's going to be a huge value pick for a team. And I don't like when see my thing with defensive tackles is I understand there's some guys who are more run defending defensive tackles, and then there's some who are like more pass defending DTs that you're going to throw in there when it's obvious pass situation. And the other, your run stuffing DT is going to be on those base downs, first and second downs. I'm of the mind that I don't want to have to pick. I don't have to choose between one or the other. If I can find both in one guy, I want that beast. And I think Jamaree Caldwell is one of those guys who's good at both. And so guys, definitely watch him if you can. And he has a really quick get off. So I think, Chris Kocurek would freaking love him. So that's my 49ers draft club recommendation to you this week. Defensive tackle, Jamaree Caldwell, Oregon. All right. I'm going to add one more name because I watched him this week as well. Edge linebacker, Jalen Walker from Georgia. Really liked it. So he's a trip and also kind of tough to evaluate, some people have said, because he's done both, right? But I don't know if the 49ers drafted him, let's say, not sure where they'd play him. I think you play him at both. Like, why not, right? So what I like about him, because he has that experience as a linebacker, I think he's especially good at understanding run fits and pursuing plays out of the backfield. Like, that's something I definitely saw in his game. A lot of tackles for loss, right? And at edge, like, I think he's pretty solid pass rusher, right? So he's great getting off his blocks. I love his effort that he plays with. So definitely like Jalen Walker. Again, not really sure where he's going to get drafted, but those are my two picks for 49K Draft Club this week. Watch Jalen Walker out of Georgia and Jamaree Caldwell out of Oregon. All right, let's see what you guys got for me. All right, so Tony has got guys who he's found interesting. Charles Grant from William and Mary. CJ West, okay. Wyatt Millam. Millam was at the Senior Bowl, so yeah, I got to see a little of him too. He's solid. Jack Nelson from Wisconsin. All right. Also, Holland Pierce from Rutgers and Curtis Rourke from Indiana. I've heard some good things about Rourke. I haven't dived into any quarterbacks this year, really, but I'll check some of these guys out. All right, so next week I'm going to check some of those guys out, and I'm going to report back. You guys going to do the same about the two guys that I gave you too, right? And then I'm going to let Wayne in on the action next week too, and he could tell us about some of the guys he's liking. So that's all for today's show. Appreciate all of you. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. It really helps the channel out, or helps the podcast out. But for now, have a good rest of your Friday, folks. Happy Valentine's Day. Peace. Well, peace.